It was so cool. Here, let me show you. So my wife has this hutch that's been in the house forever. It was her mom's. It's probably 40-year-old hutch. Okay, don't judge my Facebook, okay? So I was pretty proud of this. It's a lot of work. I'm tired today. So right here, kids, I'll show you the picture progression here. We have this old hutch in our house. Oops, that's not the one I wanted. How do I get it so I can see all pictures, kids?
You click on the one that has like the plus on it.
This one here?
Yeah, you click on that. You should be able to scroll.
For some reason, it just keeps doing that. Here, let me go all the way back to the beginning here. So this is what it was. These are all of her mom's like old dishes and stuff like that that she's kept. And there's my puppy. He's Kirby. That's Kirby down there. He's a corgi. It was one piece right now, yeah, but the top does come off. So, like, decided to paint blue on this because she wanted to match the blue on the print, so she went with that. And then so I hung that top half up on the wall, and then I painted the doors, put new hardware on. This all got repainted. This here was a top that I took off, and this is a new top. It's like a butcher block top. And then I stained it, put new hardware in here.
10 out of 10 person.
There's the finished product right
so
there.
Good.
Woo!
Wait, that's
You
like,
really upcycled though.
You like that, guys? I think it turned out pretty nifty.
that's like fancy.
Pretty happy with it. So like we're gonna put some stuff down on that there now. So
Yeah, but you get to like keep the fact that it was her mother's
Yep.
and then add
Yep.
daughters.
I think her mom would have been proud of that. Okay.
What type of dog do you have?
I have two puppies. I have a Westie puppy and I have a corgi.
Corgi,
Name-
is that the one that we saw?
Yeah, that was Kirby. That was Kirby.
Kirby the
and
corgi.
Our other dog's name is Walter. Okay. We named him Walter because I got a confession. Breaking Bad is the best show ever made, and it's my favorite show ever. And Walter White was the main character. So when I got a new white puppy, I was like, well, duh, he's got to be named Walter White. So I want a bulldog now. Okay?
I want a bulldog too.
So,
Oh,
oh,
bulldogs.
especially the puppies.
Bailey.
The puppies are so cute. Yeah, I want one of those.
They're so rolly. They're so cute.
Yeah, I know. I know. But
I do like shorter stouty dogs.
Yeah.
Long ones are just.
I always say, give me my TV and remote control, my bed, and my puppies, and I'll be happy for the rest of my life. So, okay, I think we were on example 4. Is this true, kids? Yep. I'm going to apologize again, head here. Formatting's an issue, so I'm going to be jumping back and forth. So Friday was kind of a rough day to get through, but I appreciate how patient you were with me the other day. Hey, just kind of a quick review. I'm going to put it up here. Do you guys remember if I called some function y equals, what were the two trig functions we were working with?
Sin and cos.
Okay, so the sine and the cosine. If I call it a sine of b times x minus h plus k like this, which we're going to discuss more of today. How'd you find the amplitude?
A.
That was absolute value of a. It's how far above or below the midline that went. Okay. Do you guys remember how to find the period of a function?
No.
It is
Yep,
Horizontal
2
length.
pi over absolute value.
2 pi over absolute value of b. Okay. So now, kids, here's the deal. They're going to start asking you to translate some functions and draw them in there and make a sketch of this. Okay. So here's what I think I should tell you first. All right. The first thing I want to tell you is this. I want to know, are you dealing with cosine or are you dealing with sine? And in example 4, what are we really dealing with? Okay, so cosine. I want to look at your notes real quick because I think I did something differently in 4th and 6th hour, or I'm sorry, 4th and 5th hour. I think I want you to put this down somewhere. I want you to go to the front page of the notes. I want to talk about one cycle of the cosine and the sine. So why don't you go back to the first page of notes there quickly. And let's just look right here. Okay. I'm going to kind of go on this cycle box right here and draw this. I'm going to split this cycle box kind of like this here. Let me blow, how do I zoom, guys? Mm-hmm. Okay, it's not going to go. All right, that's okay. Guys, cycles, here's what I want. Okay, let's put the sine cycle over here on the left, okay? Okay. Cycle for the sine always kind of goes like this. It makes a sideways S to start, okay? It always kind of starts out at what value, kids?
0, 0.
0, 0. Goes all the way through. Typically, the cycle time, remember what the cycle time or what one whole rotation was on a cycle from the unit circle for that parent function? Say it again.
2 pi over absolute
2
value.
pi radians. Yeah, very good. And then here's the deal. Your cycle on a cosine one, let's put cosine right up here in the box. Guys, on your unit circle, where does the cosine start out? At 0 degrees, the cosine is what value? 1. Okay, here's what I'm going to tell you. This is what I think is most important, okay? I think you should remember that the cosine starts out at 1, kind of uses, goes down to a minimum, comes back up. That's what one cycle looks like for the cosine function, okay? The way I remember those two shapes for the cycles, the way they start at x equals 0 is this. Doesn't the sine function kind of look like a sideways S? Okay, so I just think sine sideways S, okay? Cosine kind of looks like what shape, really? Looks like kind of like a U shape, okay? So remember those two shapes in terms of what we're dealing with. The sine is either going to start out like a sideways S and then repeat itself, or the cosine is going to start out like kind of a looping U shape, isn't it? Okay, let's go back to that other page then and talk about how we graph these and how we come up with horizontal translations and stuff like this. So, right here, what are we at, page 3 right now, kids? Okay, example 4 right here. First of all, what am I dealing with here, kids? Okay, you know you're dealing with a cosine function. So we're kind of starting out here with, yeah. It is. I'm having trouble. It's getting frustrating. Okay, here we go. We're starting out with what function here, kids? Cosine. So we know this is going to be like a U shape. Do you agree with that? Okay, so the first thing we know is this is going to be a U shape. Kids, what's the amplitude going to be on this? Okay, it's going to be a 2. Now, be careful on the cycle or the period for this. We have to take 2 pi and divide it by what, kids? So it'll be 2 pi divided by
1/4.
Okay, now keep in mind though, kids, 2 pi divided by 1/4, when you're dividing by a fraction down here, really the same as what?
Multiplying by 4.
Multiplying by 4. What's this period time going to be then?
8.
Okay, so now here's the deal. We've dealt with the 2, and we've dealt with this part for the amplitude. Would you guys agree with that? Everybody cool with that? Okay. How about a midline? We talked about this the other day. There's like a plus value out here on the end. Okay, there's no value out here on the end of this after the parentheses, so there's really a plus how much on the end, kids?
0.
Okay, so I know my midline is going to be at 0. So I'm not going to be shifting the U shape up or down at all, am I?
No.
Okay, here's what I want you to do. Okay, I'm going to split this into kind of 2 parts of the graph here first. Okay. When you're making these sketches here, first of all, I'm going to write this down here, okay? Figure out sine or cosine. This says, in this case, we're using cosine, right? With an amplitude of what?
2.
A period time of?
8 pi.
And then I'm just going to write down here at 0 for a midline. Okay, hear what I'm telling you right here. Okay, because the last thing we're really going to do is shift this thing up and down or left and right. Okay, you're going to have a cosine right here function, which is going to be what shape to start? Where its amplitude is what?
2.
Whole cycle time will be what?
8 pi.
Through a midline or consistent with a midline at what value?
0.
Okay, so here's how I sketch this first to start. Okay, this will be kind of step one in terms of our sketching. You agree that this x-axis then is going to be kind of the line that it mirrors the top or the peaks and the valleys. I don't want to say mirror, it just is kind of the midline for it, such that it's right in between the peak and the valley distance. Okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw one cycle. Am I making a U shape or a sideways S?
U.
Okay, let's talk about that U shape I just drew there. Okay? If the midline's 0, kids,
What about the minus 5?
say it again.
What about the minus 5?
I'll get there. I haven't dealt with that yet. We're going to do that second, okay?
Alright.
Deal with those first 4 parameters first. Here's what I'm telling you, Christian. I'm dealing with what function first, with an amplitude of what?
2.
And period time of?
8 pi.
Where the midline's at what?
0.
Okay. Guys, if the midline here is at 0, I'm just going to put a 0 over here. How high up does this point go then for a maximum?
2.
What's this point down here? So below, 2 below, right? Okay. You good on that? Let me ask you this question. One cycle time took how many radians? So we go all the way through this cycle, starting at 0. I would have to go all the way down, all the way through, and end at what?
8 pi.
Oh my gosh. Kids, they talk about 5 points to get for plotting this, okay? I'm going to do something here on the left. Watch what I do here. Oh, this looks kind of cool today. All right. Think about this point right up here at the very maximum. What is this point right now? I'll write 0, 2 here. Okay. Then right in the middle at the very peak down here, or I'm sorry, at the very bottom, the minimum, valley, I guess, that would have to happen at what point?
4 pi negative
4 pi comma negative 2. I'm going to give myself a little space. Okay. What's this point going to end back up here to be?
2. 8 pi.
Well,
8 pi comma. Okay, those points are relative for the top half. How about my zeros here? If this is 4 pi, what must this be?
2 pi.
2 pi comma what?
0.
Right? What must this be then?
6 pi comma
6 pi comma 0, right? Now kids, when you are doing a graph, here's the deal. When I say graph this or sketch a graph of it, if you can come up with 5 points, you basically started somewhere, you go on to your maximum, cross the 0, go on to your minimum, cross the 0, came back to where you were, you've got how many points there?
5.
And that completes one cycle. Once you've got one cycle completed, what starts happening to the pattern? Just repeats itself over and over. Now, the one thing that we have not considered in this is what?
pi.
This pi value, okay? This is in parentheses. This is like saying, oh, by the way, if you have, like, if I would say x minus 6, you would say, okay, Parson, take the function and move it how far right now? Well, this says take the function and move it how far right? We're going to move all those points.
1 pi. Pi over.
We're going to move it right pi units. So here's the deal. So now, this is the part, Christian, you were asking about. This is where you consider your horizontal movement. Save that for last, okay? Okay, so I'm going to say now we consider the point, or consider the movement of the x minus pi part. You guys agree that this is a translation, right? Pi units now? Let me ask this question. Have we covered the 2, the 1/4, and the 0, and everything up here?
Yes.
Okay, so the only thing we've got to take care of now in the end is moving left or right. Well, that's pretty easy to do, guys. This point at 0, 2 is going to move right how many units? So instead of being 0, 2, it'll be, you're either adding or subtracting from the x values of the points you already established with these first 4 parameters up here. Okay? So what am I really adding to all the x values to move this right now to get the exact graph I want? I'm adding pi. So the new points that we want to have now when I graph this are what? So graph pi comma 2, or I'm sorry, pi comma what? Will pi comma 2 be the first point? What's 2 pi comma 0 going to become? How much? Yep, I'm going to add pi to all these, right? We're going right, so it'd be 3 pi comma what? Next point. 5 pi comma what? What's the next one? 6 pi 0 will become?
7.
And this one will become? 9 pi comma 2. Now kids, what I love about this, again, they're going to ask you to sketch some of these. The easy thing would be to go into decimals and just graph it and put them together, right? But once I've established those points, would it be a good idea for me now to jump in there and say, oh, let's see if those points show up?
Yes.
I'm going to clean this up here quickly. You guys tell me if these points show up. You guys need more time writing those down at all? Okay, so here's what I'm at. I'm going to go to decimals. I'm going to type in here, having calculator. Okay, what was it? 2 cosine. Was it 1/4? Ah, shoot. Okay, kids, you see, I think I'll go back and fix this for you. 1/4 of, what was it, x minus pi, is that right? Okay, notice right here, I got to put a parenthesis around the 1/4. So maybe back in your notes here, whoops. Maybe back in your notes here, put a set of parentheses at the 1/4 here and another set back here, okay? So one right before the 1/4 and one back here when you type that in decimals. Let's just see. So it looks like we started out at a peak, right, kids? So if I click this, is pi comma 2 one of our points? Let's check out the next one. What was our next point supposed to be? That's a 0, isn't it? Next point was a minimum. 5 pi negative 2. Next one was, is that right?
Yep.
And then the last point was at a back into a peak.
9.2.
I'd say we got it right, didn't we? Okay, so I want to back up on this. I know it went away, but up here we said establish the first 4 things. First of all, establish which function. What was that function again? Cosine. Okay, so is that going to be a sideways S or a U shape? Okay, then establish your midline and your amplitude. Okay, draw your shape. Draw your U shape. Establish your amplitude at your midline. Okay, we did that. And then after I got those first 4 things with amplitude period, midline, and cosine, that U shape drawn, the last thing we did was move it left or right and get those 5 points. Okay? Now let's try another one here, kiddos. This is kind of the same thing, but this time, what are we doing? Okay, let me show you what the heck is going on here. All right, let me capture this. Okay, first of all, friends, what function? Sine or cosine?
Sine.
Okay, so we know it's going to be a sine function, right? which is going to be kind of like a sideways S. But kids, what do you think is going to happen since there's a negative value out in front now? So that would mean that a negative sign would look, it wouldn't start increasing and then decrease, it would start out doing what? So it's going to be like this to start. You see what I did there?
Yep.
So let's see here. If I draw over here on the board, if a U shape, if this is positive cosine right here to start for the first cycle, it's kind of like a valley. What do you think that a negative cosine is going to look like?
Like a.
It's going to look like a Wednesday, right? Hump day. All right, never mind. That was kind of, that was kind of good. I'll reach it. Don't like that. All right, so what is the amplitude here, kids?
3.
Amplitude is 3. Talk to me about my period.
It is 4 pi.
4 pi. It's 2 pi divided by 1/2, or really 2 pi times 2, isn't it? Okay, so 4 pi. Where's your midline going to be at, kids?
0.
Okay, so I'm going to say the midline is what we're going to draw this shape around right here. Now, if this would have been like +6, I would have gone up 6 and then drawn that shape where the midline would have been at 6. We've talked about that on Friday a bit. So let's just make a sketch of the first part of it, kids, and get some points. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
So the midline is where?
0.
0. So I'm going to call this value 0 right here. All right. Am I going to make the positive sign or negative sign now, kids?
Negative.
Okay, so I'm just going to make like this. I'm going to come down. I don't care what the sketch looks like. Just make one cycle, and then we can start putting values in now, okay? Looks like this point should be what? Well, let's back up on this a second, I should say. What was the whole period? Heck, back up before that. What's the amplitude?
3.
So this is going to go to a low of what?
3.
And a high of 3. Okay? What's this point going to be right here? Or how far right are we going?
4
pi.
I'll call this 4 pi. Think we can start putting points in now, kids? Okay, what's the first point going to be right here? 0, 0, I'm on the right. What do you think the next point is? Got one here. We're going to have one here. I like to work with the middle and the ends first.
Yeah.
Because it works well for me to do this one, the middle one. So this happens at what
2
pi? That's 2 pi, right? So we're at 2 pi comma 0. Let's go to the end one. What's this going to be, kids? Okay, now is it easier to figure out what these are? Let's see if there's 2 pi between the zeros here, then this would be how far right? Pi comma. How about the one that's a peak up here, or a maximum? 3 pi comma 3. Now, based on Christian's question earlier, what's the last thing to consider now? Left or right movement, right? How am I going to affect the x value here, kids? I'm going right how many units? So all the x values, what are you going to do? Okay, so you're going to add pi to them, right? So would you guys agree that our final 5 points to get a good drawing? Our final answer, 0 comma 0 would become what? 5 comma 0 would be the first part of that we want to deal with. Next point.
2 pi.
Oops, screwed that up. How do I go back? I don't. Parson. Oh, wait a minute. You gotta get out of bed early to check this out. Oh my gosh, what have I just done? Oops. What was this, pi comma 0?
Pi comma 0.
That was. Could take out a whole county with that
Negative
thing.
3.
2 pi negative 3, is that right?
3 pi.
3 pi comma. Next one would be,
4 pi.
yep.
And 5 pi.
Somebody's pumped up in there. Sounds like they're playing Andre Agassi. Last one, 5 pi comma 0.
Yep.
Now kids, I could put this in decimals and confirm this, or do you want to buy what I'm selling right now?
That's
Five
right.
percent.
You
None
guys feeling
confirmed.
kind of better about that today?
Yeah.
Identify what first?
Your cosine or sine.
Okay, you know the sign's like a sideways S. It goes like this. Now if it's negative, everything gets what happens?
Flip over axis.
Yeah, it's like a vertical reflection there, okay? That's the first thing, or like an x-axis reflection, okay? But understand this, every time I draw this horizontal line right here, I put 0 out here, why?
It's a midline.
That's my midline, because it was plus 0 on the end here, right? Okay, so things to establish. Establish the shape of your graph for a cycle first, whether that's sine or cosine. Determine your midline. Draw your shape. Put your amplitude values in relative to the midline. Figure out your points based on your period length. I think it's pretty easy. Once I draw a cycle and I know what this endpoint is, isn't it pretty easy to figure out the rest of the points, knowing my period length and my midline and my amplitude?
Yeah.
And then the last thing you want to consider is what kind of movement.
What's on there?
Left or right there. Okay? Kids, what questions do you have for me?
None.
All right, I'm going to stop this here quickly, kids. So I do have a short, oops, I didn't want to do that.